Okay, we'll just give it another minute for those people joining us. If you can just let us know on the poll as you join us the region that you're from, or you're based in, and what type of organization you're from, and then we'll just share the results as we get started in our discussion. I think we can probably leave it there, Sam, if you want to end our poll. I know we won't be able to get everybody there. Sorry, we've got jumpy slides. There we go. Okay, great. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to this session again. I'll just give a brief introduction, and then we'll have a panel discussion. My name is Alana, and I lead our GSMA Mobile for Development Utilities program. Today our session is about scaling digital innovations in urban water. So the GSMA is the Association for the whole global mobile industry, which means we represent the interests of mobile operators worldwide, as well as the broader ecosystem. And within that, our Mobile for Development Foundation drives innovation in digital technology to reduce inequalities in our world. That really means looking at how mobile technology can help to achieve the SDGs. And our program, Mobile for Development Utilities, specifically right now focuses on SDG 6 and 7, so water, sanitation, as well as energy services. And the opportunity that we see is with the increasing ubiquity of mobile networks and innovative mobile services, that's reaching more people than water, sanitation, and energy services. And our program mission is therefore how to leverage that mobile technology to deliver energy, water, and sanitation services in ways that are affordable, reliable, and safe for underserved communities. So the way that we operate, there we go. The way that our program operates is through a few activities. Our Innovation Fund and our knowledge sharing are some of the main activities. So within the Innovation Fund, we give grants to organizations that are testing and scaling these innovative mobile-enabled utility service models. And from those grants, we aim to extract insights and best practices, and then share those with the broader industry, as well as provide convening events and facilitate partnerships between utility service providers and mobile operators. And through that work, we've dispersed £9.4 million of grant funding with the support of our program funder, the UK Department for International Development. And that's gone to 53 projects between 2013 and 2020. And through that, our grantees have impacted 2.8 million people directly during the time of their grant, and raised an additional £286 million in follow-on funding following our grant. And 42 of them have secured partnerships with mobile network operators. So getting to the meat of what we want to discuss today, digital solutions in urban services. This is a basic overview of what we mean when we say digital solutions in urban services. So again, we see that increasingly we have a wide range of mobile networks across developing countries and the mobile services that go with them. So for example, mobile money has grown tremendously throughout sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia in recent years. And what that enables is solutions like pay-as-you-go models, for example. So this gives the opportunity to make services more affordable for customers by allowing them to pay in small bits, and makes it more efficient for utilities to collect their revenue. And this is often something partnered with digital smart metering, and those two together can provide a very powerful combination for improving revenue collection and making consumption and cost more visible to consumers. We also have GIS tracking, IoT, and end-to-end connectivity, which really can allow for remote monitoring at a network level, at a household level, that give visibility and accountability, allow for process automation, and lower monitoring costs. And then, of course, combining a lot of the data from these pieces, you get really informative data sets that can help support improved planning and decision-making. So getting to the main point of what we want to discuss today, scale. Scale in digital solutions. We know that scale can mean a lot of different things, and it depends on your perspective, but what we think some of the key components are the following. So there's the reach, the absolute number of people using services. There's inclusion, whether the services are reaching everyone. And then there's growth and the business development around reaching not just one utility, but 2, 3, 4 more markets. And then there's, of course, sustainability, so that these services can continue to function indefinitely and have a financial stream supporting their continued operation. And then that these services become, or these solutions become embedded, that these technologies are not sort of used only by a few people within a utility for a few things, but they're embedded and a part of everyday operations within that utility. So just to frame the conversation today, what we're going to hear about from our speakers is about how they've encountered some of the critical factors in scaling these innovations across their journey. And a broad generalization here of that journey goes from developing a solution to piloting a solution and scaling a solution, where of course we know is not completely linear, and there is some refining and iterating across those phases. But some of the factors that we're starting to look at are, the role of market attractiveness, the enabling policy and governance, ecosystem and entry points, and particularly around, as we get into piloting solution, funding becomes important, as well as partnership. And in the later stages of scaling a solution, we see trust becoming a really key issue, change management, something important to consider, adapting the business model, and really then looking to access new markets. But I'll pause there, and I will really let our speakers get more into what that all means and what their experiences have been. So with that, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Zach, who will introduce our panel.
Thanks, Alana, and good morning or afternoon to everyone. Firstly, thanks for those that filled out the poll. I think really interesting, but great for us to see that there's a global spread and also a really interesting mix of types of organisation on the board. Before jumping into introducing our panel, I first wanted to do a bit of digital housekeeping. With regards to the chat and questions, we have very limited time today, but we hope to get to a few questions after the discussion that we've planned. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A or the chat function to ask these, and my colleague George Bauer is managing those. He'll reply also to any questions, quick questions or clarifications. As we move into the audience Q&A, we'll have another poll to vote on a selection of these to help us prioritize. So, without further ado, turning to our excellent panel. First, I'd like to introduce Halima Marunga, who's Head of Business Development at WonderKid. She also acts as Chief Product Officer for InvestSusu, which are a US-based fintech, and as a digital payments advisor for UNCEF. WonderKid are a technology solutions provider that work across African countries. They work with 40 utilities in Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, Liberia, Mozambique, and the DRC. Combined, these utilities have a service area covering approximately 29 million people. Welcome, Halima. Next, we have Maria Angelica Sotomayor. She is Practice Manager for East and Southern Africa in the World Bank's Global Water Practice. She also has responsibility for leading the World Bank's work on citywide inclusive sanitation globally. She has 25 years experience working within the bank in various senior roles. And additionally, especially relevant to this week, she's on the advisory board of CB. Next, I'd like to introduce Taksim Khan, who's Managing Director of Dhaka Water and Sewage Authority. DWASA have responsibility for serving 19 million people living in the Dhaka metropolitan area. He's been MD for the last 10 years, and in this time, DWASA have taken big steps forward in digitalising their operations. At the same time, there's been impressive improvements on some of the key utility performance indicators. For example, between 2008 and 2018, non-revenue water halved from 40 to 20%, and in DMA areas it's down to 5 to 7%. Revenue collection efficiencies also improved massively during this period, from 65% up to 98%. Finally, I'd like to introduce Minaj Chowdhury, who's CEO and co-founder of Drinkwell. Drinkwell are a social enterprise that deliver water services through a blended finance franchise model. Founded in 2013, Drinkwell have deployed over 400 systems across India, Bangladesh, providing 10 million litres per month via public-private partnerships. One of Drinkwell's key solutions is providing water ATMs with mobile-enabled payments, and such systems have been deployed in partnership with DWASA in Bangladesh. That's our panel. We're immensely pleased to have everyone with us. To kick off the discussion, we're going to move through some questions we have prepared for each of the panelists, and after that we'll turn to the Q&A. So, if I may, Halima, and also could I request that we switch to, could I request all the panelists now turn your videos on? Brilliant, thank you everyone. Halima, so turning to you first and be on the spot, I think WonderKid have a lot of experience with working with a lot of utilities in different countries, and you've also rapidly scaled your operations over the last few years. So the question for you is, what have you learned from working with these utilities as your primary clients? And what has been your experience in scaling across multiple countries? And what lessons this holds for other digital solution providers seeking to work with utilities as your primary clients?
Thank you, Zach. So our solutions are user-centric, which means they're designed to meet the needs of our utility clients. And we've had the pleasure of working with 40 utilities across sub-Saharan Africa. And through that, we've been able to create standardization by aggregating client needs into one utility enterprise solution. And the model is very simple. Utilities who like our solution can simply select the modules that they feel will address their existing problem, and then pricing is based on their size, and it caters for customization and implementation. Just a few things to point out about why our solution has picked up so much traction across the 40 utilities is, number one, daily use value. With any solution, you have to make sure that there's a reason that pushes people to log onto the platform and use it for their day-to-day operations. And for our platform, it's centered around determining revenue potential, whatever's going to be billed, and what is going to be collected. These are the major pain points for across all the utilities we've worked with. And of course, there are slightly different problems for each of the various departments within the utility and the staff levels, and we create those customizations to make sure that there's traction. And then, as I mentioned, we've done customizations to make sure that reports and trends demonstrate key metrics on the targets that have been given to, whether all the way up from senior management levels all the way down to a supervisor or even to a field staff. We've invested a lot in extensive change management to ensure that our theory of change is pegged on creating transparency and trust. So the first layer of transparency is internal, within the utility itself, amongst the departments and the various staff levels. And the second layer is establishing transparency between the citizen. And that trust is when there's a leadership within the utility who sees that this solution will be a supporting pillar, then they can invest in workforce development, rewards and recognition programs, and that establishes the trust between the staff, and each of the members understand the role that they play in revenue generation and how they need to work together to achieve this goal. And lastly, as the utility establishes trust with the citizen, then they know that the model is evolving to become more citizen-centric. So I'll give you an example of one of our clients. they realize that if the customer is, is receiving an actual bill, they're paying the right amount, it's very easy for them to pay for their bill, then they're more likely to pay, and it sustains the financial health of the utility. And now the utility had the resources to invest to serve underserved communities across this area that they serve, and set up a particular unit for that. So we're able to pump money towards that. So what has been able to make us scale? Primarily it's peer-to-peer learning between utilities themselves. So benchmarking programs, and I can attest through our partnership with GSMA, there were key learnings through the partnership was between 2015 and 2017, and we leveraged on peer-to-peer learning to enable us to scale from 6 utilities to 13 within that 2-year period. So we were able to get utilities within Kenya and even utilities internationally. Actually, our first job in Malawi with Lilongwe Water Board. Additionally, consortium partnerships with contractors to win bids from international donors. It enables us to partner on programs that not only have a technology focus, but look at utility improvement. Therefore, the data that is generated from our platform now informs an investment for the larger program, so they know exactly where the money should go. So I can give you an example. Some of the data that's has been used on understanding the state of the meter network across a utility service area, and that informs on investments for new meters, including smart meters. And we saw one utility that invested up to $30,000, and this was a mid-tier utility based out of in Kenya. Also, citizen requests that were coming in for, requesting for a connection for water and sanitation services also informs the utility on an expansion strategy. So the same program can now move towards that investment. Additionally, now on the marketing side, we've been getting a lot of smaller utilities who don't necessarily have a support, whether it's from government or from international donors, who would like to use our solution. They see the value in how it can transform their services to citizens, however have constraints to financially afford it. So we're actually moving towards a SaaS-based version of our platform, which is simple monthly payment, which would be similar to having, using an accounting software.
Brilliant. Halima, thank you so much. I think an enormous amount in there, and it's just as well as being recorded. I might have to revisit it. But some of the interesting points that I picked up from there is really being able to, utilities really being able to see the value, the importance of peer-to-peer learning in terms of the adoption and benchmarking, the feedback loops, and then this move towards SaaS, software as a service, as a business model innovation that's happening within Wonderkid, but also more likely. I think turning next to Taksim, you fundamentally have a different perspective. You're on the end of applying these solutions and at a large scale. I think we know from the conversations that DWASA have begun to digitalize a lot of operations across your billing, metering, SCADA systems. And I think the question that I'd like to ask you is, what's been the process that's led to successfully introducing these? How have you managed it? What lessons do you think this holds for other utilities seeking to digitalize operations? And finally, where are DWASA headed in the near future on digitalization?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, thank you for the question. First of all, yes, as you already mentioned that we are serving almost 19 million people, and that's a big number of people, and we are serving to ensure their water and sewerage, especially the water, and that's why it's an enormous job, and for that reason, from the very beginning, we had to be very careful that how we'll be able to ensure 24/7 water for all the people, and in 2010 or 2009, actually, when we came to the responsibility of Dhaka WASA, at those days it was mostly we were working on a manual basis, except part of the building and some of the treatment centers which were already to some extent digitized. But from 2010, we found that without having digitization, without having using the digital technology, it would be impossible to ensure water supply for the big number of such a huge number of people, because it's a mega city and the population density is too high. So that was one of the driving factor when we had to go for innovation, and one of the best innovation was to find out digital solution. At the same time, there was also another reason that in 2009 the new government under the leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, she also declared that what she called a digital Bangladesh, and we accordingly announced ourselves that we want to be the digital WASA, Water Supply Storage Authority. And that's what it was, and we declared a program called Dhaka WASA Turnaround Program. And under that program, we started, first of all, capacity building of ours, as well as a big number of investments. We invited a lot of investment, and we have been able to grab those investment, and we made a lot of investment in digitization. Especially the first, it was the treatment plants, which was a huge investment. And this was obviously all were most modern with digital system, as well as we are using GSM. GSM service, say for example, in smart metering. Well, at this moment, our billing system is almost 100% automated, but we have still to go forward with digitizing all the meters, because at present, some of the meters are manual, and we are taking the information from the meter, and then we are putting it in the computer, and it's producing the billing system. So there we are now having 4 vendors are working with us to digitize meter. What we want, that without any human touch, we want the meter reading should come to the server. Accordingly, it will generate the bill, and accordingly, people will pay the bill. That is paperless, environmental friendly billing system. No paper will be issued, and obviously it is enormous, because as you can remember, 19 million people, and as we have almost more than 400,000, 500,000 customers. Although our customers are not each houses, because our system is that in one building, if there is 4 or 5 families, then we consider them as one customer. So that was a driving force that we had to go for digitization. And at this moment, say for example, we are extracting underground water from the ground, and for that extraction, we are using some few hundreds number of deep tube wells. Now, almost we are now started using SCADA on all those deep tube wells, so that these tube wells are now operated without any human touch, and from the remote control, from the what we call the integrated water operator control room. And each we are divided into 10 zones, 10 clusters, and each cluster have one integrated water monitoring system, controlling system from where they are controlling. And here we are using obviously GSM system for controlling those pumps and through the SCADA, as well as in our treatment center, that means water treatment plants. Everything is automated, and you are using SCADAs, and you are using extensive. You are using the GSM system. So we are using the GSM system in our SCADAs, and all the pumps, all the treatment plants, And the most innovative drive that we are giving, by the way, also we are using electronic filing system. We don't have any manual. Almost no, 90% our filing is electronic. We sign the file electronically. Then we have a tendering process is almost 100% electronically. That means we don't have any paper to sign for tendering. Then we have, as I told, billing system. We have the application and connections, everything is digitized. That means if anybody want to ask for any a connection, he has to go for online and use the electronic system, not the manual. So almost everywhere, even we are using the pressure reducing valves in the street, which are e-PRV. Here we are using GSM because we are using remotely controlling all those valves from the control room, and that is through using the GSM technology. So we have enormous use of GSM technology, as well as I told in our digitization. We have used other technology also. So our the main aim is to ultimately go for 100% what we call the ERP. That means everything will be digitized, and that is the best solution, because we found that without digitization, it is impossible for us to ensure the customer service, to ensure the water. It's a huge quantity of water we are producing, but at the grace of Almighty, now we are absolutely under control. In Dhaka city, we have no water problem, and everybody is getting water. Unlike many other developing countries, mega city, we are having 24/7 water, and the system is digitized. And obviously, there is a lot of things to learn from here. We learned a lot of things. We are sharing with our peer organizations in our this South Asian countries, and we have a very good water partnership with many other utilities. Also, we have a water partnership with some of the European water utilities. We have partnership with Asian, as well as in Korean, Japanese. We have Netherlands-based. So we are always cooperating with each other in order to develop, in order to enhance our digital capacity, enhance our power to digitize more and more as much as possible. So that's what I think we are trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Texan. I think I personally have a few follow-on questions from that, but I encourage everyone to put questions into the question and answer if there's anything that you'd like to know more about that, and we can use those to vote later. I think really impressive progress on digitalization, and also underscore highlighting the necessity of it. Minaj, so Drinkwell have been working with the DWASA to deliver water ATM models there and with others, and I think your relationship with utilities is slightly different than that of Halima's and software providers, in that you're structuring agreements around service delivery. And I think the question I want to ask you is about getting the cost and the risk sharing right in these agreements, and what the consequence of that is in terms of how you scale and attract funds.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, absolutely right. I think, let me just take a quick step back. At Drinkwell, our mission is to really make it easy for safe water providers to design, build, operate, and maintain water infrastructure. And so when it comes to working with a utility like Dhaka WASA, the first step is ensuring crystal clear alignment on what we're actually solving for. And so in the case of Dhaka, it was really around inclusion. Dhaka is one of the most densely populated cities in the world, and there's actually 4 million floaters who don't have a residential home per se, as much as they're kind of really squatters. And these people don't actually have a reliable, safe, and affordable access to safe drinking water. And so before our partnership began, the baseline scenario for these floaters was that they would have to go to one of 700 pumps that are dispersed throughout the city, to collect water. Unfortunately, even though the water was in theory free, many of these sources could have been occupied by water sharks or musselmen, who are basically selling water at illegal price or inconsistent prices. It was of inconsistent quality, and the water was being available at inconsistent times. And so, in terms of alignment, it was really clear what Dhaka WASA wanted to do was really professionalize the service delivery mandate to these floaters, or what we called them as low-income communities. And so in that effort, we were very clear that the goal is around really being a partner to Dhaka WASA in extending their service delivery mandate. And so that really informed how we structured the agreement. So it was a public-private partnership. Technically, it's a build, own, operate agreement. And so the way it works is Dhaka WASA will give us access to the land and the water source and electricity within those network of 700 pumps. And then at no cost to Dhaka WASA, Drinkwell will crowd in impact investment grants to actually set up the water ATM, which is really two components. First, it's the filtration technology that we use to purify water, and then second, it's the actual dispensing of the water through a pay-as-you-go method. And we wouldn't charge Dhaka WASA for that. The goal being that we wanted to further the service delivery mandate by showing that we would take the technology and product risk, and we would want Dhaka WASA to open up its resources as a cost share and really provide it at no cost. And so that's kind of how we structured the agreement. And the real indicators in the agreement that dictates payment from Dhaka WASA to Drinkwell is squarely around service delivery. So it's around ensuring water quality, operating hours. We really have very strict parameters around what you need to measure every 3 months to ensure proper water quality, how often the pump should be open, if it does have to go for maintenance, when that is possible. And what that really allowed us to do is focus on the inclusion piece by ensuring that the service delivery was of the same quality as any other project. And Dhaka WASA would basically give us a fixed payment in exchange for that kind of a service delivery experience. And so that also kind of, from Dhaka WASA's perspective, meant we, initially before GSMA had 8 systems, the Mobile for Development Innovation Fund effectively funded 80 additional systems to help us start our journey to scale, is look at how the cash flows would work from a portfolio perspective. So it wasn't as important to make sure that each water ATM was sustainable financially as much as it was to ensure the whole project is actually sustainable, because that's where you can really have some outliers that maybe not are serving 300 to 600 households, but are serving 50 households who really struggle to collect safe water from a pipe network because the network doesn't reach them yet. And so what the agreement really allowed us to do is look at things from this portfolio perspective. It really eased a lot of the unit economic pressure that I've seen in a lot of more traditional safe water enterprise models. I think the final step is really sequencing the risk capital accordingly. And so the best analogy that I've ever heard of this was imagining an onion where you've got multiple layers, and at the very core you've got this beautiful cash flow positive, scalable, EBITDA positive, cash efficient business. And what are all the layers of risk that you need to peel off to get to that beautiful core? And what we found is that at the very outer layer, you've got all kinds of market risk, product risk, and that's where the grant funders can really take that risk and help you layer off those kinds of issues. As you work your way towards that core, you can really then start to tap into the much larger pool of commercial financing, ideally because you've gotten the product, accounts receivable, and cash management risks out of the way. And that really allows you to scale the model beyond just a pilot in one city, now to where we're working with Chittagong WASA, thanks to an introduction from the World Bank. We were in discussions with the Asian Development Bank, and all of these discussions are centered around this risk reduction framework, where we're really proving how with grants, we were able to de-risk the product and now really get into more debt-driven conversations around how can we, and we started off using Kiva, which is a great 0% interest source of debt, to show that we can actually even use the debt to finance working capital. So I think having that kind of a risk framework outset from the start really helps show the vision to getting some of these later commercial financing sources on board.
Thanks, Manoj. I think really interesting there. Also, lots to revisit. Last bit of housekeeping on the question and answers. If anything that any of the panelists has brought up a question for you, now's the time to pop it into the Q&A, as we'll put, after Maria Angelica speaks, we'll put everything to a vote. On that, Maria Angelica, it almost goes without saying that many of the bank's clients are water utilities, and you have a lot of experience in engaging with some of the core challenges they face. So I think the question really is quite an open one, which is, what are the opportunities that you see for digital solutions addressing these, and how they can be scaled?
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me to this very important session, I think. The ongoing COVID pandemic is showing that there are many opportunities, and actually in the sector we need innovation to help utilities deliver services and accelerate progress towards achieving the SDGs. Digital innovation is about improving the different processes to make service delivery more efficient and expand access while delivering a better service, and allowing the utility managers and even decision makers to make better informed decisions. So there's ample opportunities to scale up. For that, we must continue to motivate political commitment and leadership, promote the technical innovations within the utilities, crowd in financing, and develop new breakthroughs in the service delivery financing model, so that utilities and governments are able to achieve the SDGs, and digitalization and technology will play a key role there. But more importantly, innovations should be cost efficient. It's not innovation for innovation. It's not to show that you have the coolest meter, but that you can improve and provide services to reach out to more customers, and provide better quality. And ultimately, innovation should help reduce costs and make the services more efficient. So we see that there's a lot of opportunities throughout the work of the utility, from creating access to sustainable water sources, all the way to the interface with the consumer. Water utilities around the world are taking the lead in watershed scale management in many countries, both because they need to protect the quality, but also their main water users. And there are several innovations that can help managers do this more efficiently, while making better and more better informed decisions. New innovations around the monitoring of groundwater, surface water, remote sensing. A second area, and it's what we have been discussing more in this session, is about improved utility management, water quality monitoring, smart metering, decentralized approaches. Digitalization opens the door to a wide array of opportunities. So even from the way treatment plant of operations to the interface. The customers, there's a lot of innovation that can be brought in, and actually this is an area where I believe water sector doesn't do as well as other utilities like energy or telecoms, and is the customer experience by the water utility. And I think online tools have been particularly essential during this COVID crisis, since people were asked to limit their time outside their homes and need to practice social distancing. So there have been an upsurge in digital technologies, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, that being used to improve customer service delivery. Well, customer engagement and digital technologies have been primarily used for customer billing, but there are other opportunities. 311 platforms and other technologies for improving the interaction with customers, to provide feedback to the water utility, for example, in issues of supply interruptions and water quality, but also smart water grids. Technological solutions, as was being discussed, to reach the unserved through decentralized distribution solutions. And also there's a role for water governance regimes to improve the way they interface with regulators, with decision makers, for example, to provide benchmarking and promote policies that will enable more efficient performance by utilities. So to scale up, I think utilities need to undergo and realize how they can provide better services. And in the bank, we've been focusing on this area for a long time now, and we are promoting something that we're calling Utilities of the Future approach, to help our client utilities become more future focused and bring technology to provide reliable, inclusive, transparent, and responsive services. And so using technology as a fit for purpose. And this, we believe, is very timely given the pandemic, for instance. So I think this is a really important moment where we have the opportunity to scale up all these and to have a discussion on how you want to move forward, how you build back better. You don't need to go back to where you were, but take opportunity of the existing technologies to leapfrog. And again, I want to say that innovation for innovation is not what we would like to promote, but to bring this as a tool to improve the commercial, the technical, financial management, the way human resources are managed, and to provide a better service to the customers in the interaction with the utility. We're convinced that better service will allow utilities and customers to be willing to pay more and create a better relation between the customer and the service provider. And this has to be done at different levels, but it's very important that human resources and financial resources are there to accompany those technologies. And we've seen in many cases utilities are putting scarce resources into systems that they cannot operate, or they cannot, they become then like attached to one provider, and we think that's not what we want to promote. And so it requires also investing in human resources, and also I think it's very important that we de-link the association in our mind that technology is expensive, and start thinking through how bringing these technologies we can have more efficient services that would be cost effective, and so it's like a win-win for the sector. So thank you so much. That's more to talk, but I keep it there.
Yeah, thanks, Maria and Angelica. I think really optimistic note to end on, but also I think the gauntlet thrown down in terms of digital solutions really demonstrating their value and their commercial viability for utilities to take up. I think we've taken some of the questions that have been coming in. I think a really interesting range of questions. So we'll now put those to a vote. So if everyone could just take a moment to vote on the question that you'd like answered, and we'll then deal with them in the order of priority. Okay, I think we'll give it 30 seconds more because there's a lot of text there to digest, but everyone can move towards making a decision. Okay, close the poll in about 5 seconds. Okay, Sam, I think we can close the poll now. So, I think there's a clear winner, and it starts with one for you, Taksim, which is about cost recovery on installing those meters. And I think this broadens out to how can metering solutions be scaled on among water utilities in emerging markets. So I think, Taksim, if we begin with you on the cost recovery piece of introducing smart solutions, and then Halima, could I turn to you on the second part of the question in terms of what you've seen with the utilities that you work with across African countries in terms of being able to introduce these? Taksim, please.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, regarding the cost recovery of the meter and of course some of the other investments also. No, first of all, at this moment, if you ask me, our operating ratio is almost 0.70, which means if we are earning $100, we're investing for our operation and maintenance $70, which means it's a very good benchmark. We have the system that in the meters usually it is paid by the customer. But when we're doing some experiments, say for example, when we started installing DMS system, district metered area, that means a new distribution network system, then we provided the meter. All the meters were then at that time was been provided, which is automated meter readers reading, and this was being given by us. So it was being provided by the utility, and we didn't charge the customer. And actually, our tariff, of course, we are not still having the economy tariff because it is determined by the government, and that's the reason why we are asking the government to give the subsidy. I mean, the differences of the money. I mean, the production cost and the sell cost. The difference, we have some differences because our sell cost, our production cost is more than the sell cost. So what happened? The government is giving us that subsidy. Otherwise, if we go for the exact economy price, that's okay, fine, we can run, it's absolutely okay. So considering the subsidy from the government, we are absolutely now a profitable organization, and we are recovering all the expenses, and our balance sheet is absolutely fine. But of course, we are getting some subsidy from the government, and the O&M cost, that is OPEX, our 100% this OPEX is covered from our operation. And the cost that we are getting from the customers, that is what we call the revenue. Actually, we don't use the word revenue, we use the word service delivery earnings. So we are covering everything from our service delivery earnings, because sometimes it's confusing, because when it's a revenue, it means it's a government revenue money. It's not a government revenue money. It's we are getting the money due to the in exchange of the service that we are providing. But of course, government has some investment here also, and we are paying back through what we call DSL, debt service liability. Each year, government is fixing what is our total liability, and they ask such money for each year, and we are paying back to the government. So from that point of view, we are absolutely a commercial organization, and we are run as a corporate body, although the ownership belongs to the government.
Thanks, Maxine, for that detailed one. I think really interesting elements there about the cost recovery from the clients, and I think it's reflected in such high revenue collection, but also I think within that a story of a kind of virtuous cycle of service delivery and improvement and revenue collection, which is really positive to see. Halima, there was a broader part of that question, which is how, you know, smart meters or stuff that requires capital, digital processes that require capital expenditure can be scaled. And I was wondering, from your experience in working with utilities across African countries, how you see that this hurdle could be overcome, or some of the challenges within it.
Absolutely. The biggest priority for the utilities that we've worked with, especially the larger utilities that serve capital cities, they typically have a split of 70-30 revenue, 70 coming from commercial clients, which are few, and then 30% coming from domestic clients, which are many, but it's smaller amounts for the bill paid. So for smart meters, due to the cost and the maintenance involved, for the utilities it makes sense to meter their commercial clients. And I say this because even with the analog meters that are there, on a daily basis, utilities ask their meter readers to go and check readings on specific commercial clients who are the ones who give them the bulk of their revenue. So it means it makes sense that there's an obvious transition to move to a smart meter whereby they would be receiving readings on in real time, and that allows them to know that they can monitor their revenue, and if any case that there's water that's being consumed that has not been accounted for, there's fewer incidences of that. So that is how smart meters will end up paying for themselves. On a domestic side, I think the challenge that we see is how do you bring the cost has to be comparable to a normal analog meter for it to make economic sense to the utility. That is the biggest challenge. But we've seen I've seen instances of GSM-based smart meters being used by commercial clients with a payback of 1.5 years. So there's definitely a large market opportunity. It's to really understand what is the pain point for the utility and how the smart meter is going to solve it.
Thanks, Halima. We've run slightly over time, and we're very pressed for time. Before turning to wrapping up, and my colleague Alana to have final words, I just wanted Maria, Danica, and Minaj. The second voted question was on pay-go being a perfect solution when combined with meters, so it builds on the first. I was wondering if either of you have a comment, particularly Minaj, perhaps starting with you as you use a pay-go business model, building on what Halima and Maxine said, but also speaking to that second question of what the space is beyond, for other services as well.
Sure. So pay-as-you-go really makes life easy. when it comes to decentralized operations. Just the fact that you can have a digital ledger with an ATM card that keeps track of your balance, how much liters has been dispensed, it really helps with the customer experience. It also helps on the back end for us to really understand things like, what's the month 3 customer retention rate? Why are certain demographics not coming back to the ATM booth whereas others are? Are they valuing convenience more than price? How is all these different variables inherently now digital because of the pay-as-you-go solution, allowing us to really iterate and improve our process? So it's kind of linked to the smart water meter conversation. The pay-as-you-go meter effectively acts as kind of like a decentralized smart water meter. And so I think it's seen a lot of success in energy. I think it's just getting started with water, especially with the proliferation of water ATMs across India, Bangladesh naturally, and hopefully beyond into the larger region. So I'm excited for the potential of pay-as-you-go. I think it's going to really help attract a lot more commercial financiers because they can see the utilization rates. So I think it's a net real positive for serving those who live beyond the pipe.
Brilliant, thanks Minaj. I think with time as it is and already over, we'll have to move to close. I think on PayGo really interesting. The GSMA has been supporting PayGo Solar, and that's taken off in a big way, and we see huge potential of that model moving across the water at scale. With the last few moments, I'll turn to my colleague Alana for a wrap-up and a few final words. So Alana, over to you. Before I do, just wanted to say my personal thanks to everyone who joined today from time zones from Dhaka to DC. It's either a very late evening or an early morning, and thank you all so much.
Great, yes, thank you so much to our panelists. I think there was a lot of depth in there, and so I don't mean to oversimplify it, but if I were to try and do that, and share sort of what I think the key summary points were, I would say that there's 3 things. One is solve the problem and keep solving it. So we heard it's not innovation for innovation's sake. We heard about how Minaj has focused on, for Dhaka WASA, on the problem of inclusion, and for WonderKid they focused on revenue generation and collection. Point number 2, there has to be trust and clear agreement with the utility on who is on a lot of levels. But we heard about trust from Halima with the utility first, across departments, and then with the users. And I think, clear agreement between a technology provider and a utility as to what their value add is. What is the commercial agreement there? That has to be clear. And 3, I think finance the solution in stages and modify the business model when needed. The solution has to pay for itself. We've heard about moving to a software as a service model. We heard about how grants can be used to de-risk solutions and to build to scale, and how they can allow you to look at providing services not just at a unit level, but once you get a certain number of units, to look across that and figure out the business model across those individual water points. We talked about the potential role for government subsidy to help on meter installations, and I would add we heard about sort of pay-as-you-go as a role in that, and really the need to take it in stages, and that the cost has to be comparable to alternatives. I really think that it can be summed up with the solution has to pay for itself, right? I think that's a great thing for all of us to remember. So with that, we've hit the end of the hour. Sorry, I know everybody's being a bit cheeky with these sessions. It's taken them from 45 minutes to an hour, so thanks everyone for staying with us. And we'll call it a day there. So thank you all very much, and we look forward to engaging with you in the future.